Theology Unhinged.
Yes.
And we are in the middle of Advent,
Advent!
actually, and there is a lot of confusion in popular culture about and in the society about Advent. And so I wanted just to chat with you, and because I am originally from Czech Republic, and all this season had been celebrated, at least at the time when I was there, somehow differently. But I wanted to ask you, how do you, or did you, as a girl in your family, how did you celebrate Advent? What was Advent season for you in Pittsburgh and in your church, or maybe in your school, or in your African American community? I know that there are different customs and other things, so I'm really curious.
Yeah, those all have like a little bit different answers. So first of all, in Pittsburgh, it was cold, so we were cold. But
a lot of snow.
Usually a lot of snow. Sometimes by Christmas we would get some, sometimes we wouldn't. Pretty unpredictable. But I know we actually kept an Advent calendar in our house. And it was one of those things where...
With chocolate, or?
Not with chocolate. Have you seen those catalogs that people buy, and it's like cutesy stuff for your home, like LL Bean or things like that? Yeah, so my mom got an Advent calendar from one of those catalogs that had little, like, fabric figures. So one was a snowman, one was a present, one was a drum, one is a star, one Santa, like that kind of stuff. And you could just put them in, and then you would hang them up on the calendar however you wanted. And I got in my mind a system of how this was going to work. I don't even remember how old I was. I might have been 12 or 13, but I got it in my head that certain things had to go with certain numbers. So like 24 was the closest to Christmas. That was Christmas Eve, so it had to be the star because it represented the star for Jesus. And then Santa could be next to it, but Santa couldn't be last because Santa was not as important as Jesus.
So you're reorganizing.
So I reorganized the whole thing, and then I numbered the back of them so that I wouldn't forget. And then I had like a system of how to know what to put on which little bell or whatever that we were hanging them on. And the thing is, my mother still has this. And so she'll hang it up, and then she won't touch it. And then whenever I get there, even if I get there on like evening of Christmas Day, I still have to go and put it up. That's my thing that I do.
So you're organizing it.
So still. I'm still organizing it all of these years later. I think like one of the pieces is missing, and so we just skipped that one. But like it's still the same thing I was doing as a kid. We would also...
And you still have, or you are getting, I noticed that you still keep the tradition of Advent calendar yourself here in the office.
I do. Every year I get a Lego Advent calendar because I was trying to figure out a way to keep track of Advent that would be fun and helpful for the church. So I get a Lego Advent calendar, and I just put the pieces out every day, and then at the end I take all the pieces and I put them in the Lego collection so that the children get to play with them. So I get to play with them, and then they get to play with them.
They're more playful. You know, the only Advent calendar I remember from my childhood was some kind of a Nestle calendar.
Like a Nestle, like the chocolate?
Chocolates inside, you know, and very little chocolate. And, you know, then you open the door, you eat the chocolate, and it's gone.
I've never had one of those.
We'll get you one.
All right.
Maybe next Advent.
Maybe next year. Did you have any special celebrations or anything at church when you were growing up?
In church, we would have for Advent, an Advent wreath with candles.
Okay.
It'll be a little less organized than it is here in America. So Advent candles, the wreath would be made just of pure green branches, evergreens, and on it at least in Central Europe, those would be just plain red candles.
Okay.
Not like here we have purple
With
and
the
one
purple and the
pink
pink and
or
all
something
that.
like that. No, nothing of that. Usually it'll be like plain column, short, relatively red candles. That would be what we would light in church. But usually it would be lit before the service. We would not have any kind of special readings associated with it.
Less
or whatever.
fanfare and all that.
Yes, yeah. More like plain, partly because the whole church was plainer in many respects than Presbyterian church. So, yeah.
Did you have any kind of nativity or pageant or anything like that?
Oh, we would have pageant.
I'm going to take a guess that it's not quite the same as the ones that we do here.
No, because it was always produced on Christmas Eve during the day. That would be a big service, but just don't ask me about the number of services for Christmas, or we can return to it. But I would be curious about your church. What was the custom, or what was done in your church in Pittsburgh?
The Christmas pageant at my home church is the reason that I'm in the church, actually.
Really?
Really. I might have told this story before, but when I was a little kid, we grew up Baptist because both my parents were Baptist, but neither of them really liked going to church, and I was too little to really be paying attention, and so we stopped going. But we had some family friends, and they had kids my age, and I would sleep over at their house. And when I slept over at their house, if it was a Saturday, the Sunday morning I would just go to church with them. And so the first time that happened, it happened to be the Sunday of the Christmas pageant. And the way that it worked, it still works actually, at that church is that some kids have lines, but like for the most part, they have groups of people who are dressed up and all that, and they can basically just put a costume on you and you can go. So they put a costume on me. I really, in my heart of hearts, wanted to be a shepherd because I thought it was cool. I liked the colors. But they put an angel costume on me.
So you were angel.
So I was an angel. I was about 7 years old, and that was my first Christmas pageant. And it was the first time I was at that church, and they were so lovely and welcoming to this little 7-year-old stranger. And I ended up, like I said, going back with that family, and ultimately that led me to doing Sunday school there, which led me to hanging out afterwards to try and stay for church. I became an acolyte. I dragged my parents to church. So all of that started.
And now minister.
All because they threw an angel costume on a 7-year-old.
That's marvelous.
To the point now that I actually grew up and I worked in that church as a youth leader, and I got tired of, they would buy pageants, like scripts, and then I would have to edit them because a lot of the jokes were really corny and cheesy and not great. And so I would take them out, and I got so sick of doing that because I have a background in playwriting that it was like, can I just write them? And they said yes. And so it's been 10 years now, and I'm still writing their Christmas pageants. And then any other church that I go to, I write theirs as well. So I've written one for us, and I've written one for them. Apparently, they're both on the same day. So I'm excited to hear about that.
That's marvelous. Yeah, we would have productions, as I said. We would even build stage in the church.
Yeah, we never did that.
And those were substantial productions. You know, not only a few lines, but the kids would have to learn a lot. And adults or youth were involved with that as well. So I was once an angel also.
Ooh.
Originally it was supposed to be on a bicycle coming there, part of the joke.
Yeah.
Because our church had steps leading down to it, to the church, it was impossible to come on a bicycle, or it will be quite, I was not into those kind of tricks on bicycles or whatever. So I ended up, then I thought of taking a skateboard.
That was my thought too.
A skateboard, but I did not have my own from home. I simply could not fetch it in time, and I got borrowed one, which was a little rusty. And while practicing, I fell off it and almost like strained my wrist or whatever. So afterwards, I went and bought my inline skates.
There you go.
And so Angel that Christmas came not on bicycle, not on skateboard, but on inline skates.
And now all I want for Christmas is a picture of you on in inline
I don't know
skates.
whether they are any. There might be, you know. I'll go and search for it, you know. But it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
But the other thing which I was always kind of. When would you put up the Christmas trees? Because that's something I never really got, and it's partly my Central European upbringing, which is different than I realized than here in America. So
so I don't know if there was any rhyme or reason to when we put up the tree. I think it was whenever my parents were both free, and we could drive down. But we would go pick up the tree sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't think there was any particular set time. But we would drive to, there was a school for the blind in Pittsburgh, and then on their lawn they would sell all of these Christmas trees. So they were cut from somewhere else, but then they would bring all of these trees and they would have them all set up, sprawled across this giant lawn. And so we would wander around and pick things out. And I have really strong memories of going through as a kid and trying to like argue with my parents and debate them on what I thought the best tree was and how tall it should be. And I was like 8, so I didn't have a concept of like ceilings. So I would just argue for the biggest tree regardless of whether it would fit in our house. And then we would bring it home and we would decorate it. And my mom has very particular taste when it comes to her Christmas decorations. And I don't. So I had these Christmas ornaments. I think my mom got me one from the year I was born. I was like a month old for my first Christmas, all the way up until I was 18. And so I would always go and put those up. And then she would be putting up these very nice ornaments. And
everything
she has, she was a school teacher, and one of her students' parents made her these custom ceramic little, like, we call them snow babies, but they're like little kids in snowsuits, like doing all sorts of things. And like, it's really pretty. Like her tree right now, when she puts it up, looks like it belongs in a department store. But it was nice because we had this very nice looking tree that also had these specks of childhood in them.
That's lovely. That's very nice.
I know. Do you put up a tree?
Actually, no.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. But still, I think that in that school, did it benefit that school? That selling of the trees on their premises?
I think so.
Yeah. What I like about it is really the smell, the fragrance of all that, those needles all around. And that's what we do. We have a vase with few branches, which we gently decorate. And then I rescued once on our first Christmas in America. After Christmas, we were going to a grocery store, and they were just throwing out surplus Norfolk pines. Those are like potted, and these were like back then like they were like maybe 2 foot tall, not really big, and now we have it all those many years later. It's barely fitting in our apartment now.
Wow.
It's like I don't know, to the ceiling really, and we still decorate that. And so that is our only Christmas tree we have. You know, so it's we kind of agreed with Martina, with my wife, that my parents did Christmas trees always, but over there, at least in our broader family, it would be on Christmas Eve.
Nice.
During the day.
I've heard of that before.
Yeah. So Advent is dedicated really into waiting for Christmas and everything, and then with Christmas Eve, Christmas is actually arriving, and so you set up the Christmas tree.
That makes a
It'll
lot of
stay there until Three Kings, Epiphany, and that's it. You know.
I bet I can name one thing that my family did that you've never done. So my parents would throw a Christmas party for Christmas Eve every year. My mom still does this. And we've never actually celebrated the holiday. But the day after Christmas is Kwanzaa in the US. And so they have a candle holder called a kinara.
Yeah.
And so that has 7 candles, 3 red, 3 green, and 1 black, I think. I believe that's how it goes. But we would have one of those on our mantle along with the rest of our Christmas decorations. And like I said, we never actually celebrated it, but we knew the general history of it and all that, and it was just sort of a nod to our own culture.
Tell me more about it,
yes.
because that's absolutely, you are absolutely right. That's something.
Kwanzaa is a uniquely
African
American thing. So this is my elementary, middle school knowledge of Kwanzaa. My apologies if I get things wrong, but essentially, it's celebrating sort of Pan-African heritage, and it's got 7 principles. If I tried, I might be able to name 4. And so you light a candle each night, and each night has a different principle. And instead of more commercial gifts, you bring like fruit or food or things like that. And it's all about connecting with your roots and spending time with your family and all that. And so folks might wear some kente cloth or some more traditionally African clothing.
It's lovely.
But I know that there are people who still celebrate. I know Harlem does a big celebration around Kwanzaa. I know they do one in Pittsburgh, I think still. My cousin, who's like my mom's age, will sometimes go to that. But that was something that we sort of had just as like a marker, like a reminder of that as well.
That's lovely. And I would have something you probably never did.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That is that I still remember in my childhood having a real pine tree. My parents decorating it on Christmas Eve. And then lighting and real candles on it.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah. Have you done that?
No, we have not.
It was quite scary, but no, we always done that for a number of years.
Wow.
Then later we got some electric lights when I went to high school, I think. So all my childhood up to high school. This is how old I am.
Did the tree ever catch fire?
No, never.
That sounds like a miracle. That is a Christmas miracle to me.
No, but those were also like more regular trees, not like those thick trees you have here. So there were more spaces between branches, so you can kind of put those candles, and there were special candle holders which kind of protected it also.
Okay.
You know, so it would not catch easily fire. You know, and yeah.
That feels kind of magical.
Yeah, it was. Maybe from that moment on, I had that kind of special interest in fire or flames.
We found the origin.
Yeah.
In this Advent season.
Yeah. And then it would roll into Christmas. We would have parties, more like family parties, not like for friends. And interestingly, on Christmas Eve, that would be the main like celebration in my family, but it would still be like a fast food, fasting food, not fast food. That's something else. Fasting food, which would be fish, fried, and lentils, for instance, would be regular side dish, and so on and so forth. But some people would fast until midnight when we went to church again. And there'll be different customs associated with that, and so on. So but Advent is actually a very rich time, I think. It
is.
You know,
there's so many things to do.
And people should really look into all their old traditions rather than spreading Christmas, I think.
I appreciate all of the things that I got to do during Advent, all the way up to going to my parents' party or going to church on Christmas Eve. It just makes it so that by the time you get to Christmas, like, you've just sort of been building up on all of this wonder and specialness, and then I think it just makes it more rich, and makes Christmas even more fun and special.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing, really.
Thank you.
And hopefully it'll encourage people into looking into really an Advent traditions and family laws and or spiritual traditions, because Advent wreath is, for instance, coming from Lutheran tradition, and so on. So I think that's
Happy Advent.
Happy Advent.